So our topic tonight is, I forget the exact language, but it's religion and freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is becoming a problem for us in our modern world, to a certain extent. The advent of freedom of religion, let's say in the 1700s, that's where it started. There are issues with it right away. I mean, the fact is that there are many people, many Gedolim who are concerned about freedom of religion because it would open up the forces of assimilation. Napoleon granting all rights to Jews basically could be a force for assimilation. Keeping Jews separate kept Jews separate and therefore kept them committed to Torah. But the fact is that in many ways we've benefited from freedom of religion. Moshe Feinstein refers to America as a Medina Shel Chesed because of the way they treated the Jews, because of their principle of freedom of religion. So there is Jews have always seen or always felt a positive feeling towards freedom of religion, in the sense that it allowed us to follow our faith and so forth.
Can you just clarify something? Because you're saying freedom of religion. So just to define it, the freedom of religion in the United States of America is different than the freedom of religion that was in Europe.
Yes.
Or no?
It's a difference between freedom from religion and freedom of religion. In France, when they're now talking about barring any religiously obvious dress in France. It's the same thing with the issue of the burkini. The French concept of freedom of religion is no imposition from religion. That was basically a response to the Catholic Church, almost like the way a lot of the Quebecois, when they started talking about independence, a lot of those forces for independence in Quebec was very much also tied to independence from the influence of the Catholic Church. So France very much is freedom from religion. We don't want religion to impose upon us anything. And therefore, the idea that some people were wearing bikinis and so forth, what did it matter? The fact is they didn't have a right to practice their religion, and people were arguing, you're imposing your religion upon us. So that's free. That's the term more specifically defined as freedom from religion. Freedom of religion is the allowance for someone to practice their religion. Okay, so in many ways there's overlap. Freedom from religion basically says freedom and so forth, but don't impose. And in freedom of religion, also there are also limits. That's why a child child of a witness who can't get a blood transfusion, that child will be taken over as a ward of the state to be given blood transfusions. But generally, freedom of religion is allowing you to practice your religion. We Jews have benefited from that. And therefore, generally, Jews have a very positive feeling of freedom of religion. Two questions then emerge. Does Torah accept freedom of religion? I remember, this was, it may have been 20 years ago. I was giving a shiur of people who were yeshiva graduates. I mean, and I sort of said this issue about does Torah accept freedom of religion, and there were guys who, went to yeshivas and days said, "What do you mean we don't believe in freedom of religion?" Because it's so ingrained in our own psyche that there should be a value of freedom of religion, and furthermore, it is something that we've benefited from. So it's hard to take a value that we've seen the positive results from, and to see to turn around and say, but if we were going to do it, we wouldn't do it. Yeah, if we're in America, we love you guys to be freedom of religion, but if we had a Torah state in totally abiding by Torah, right, we'd never practice freedom of religion. It's very interesting when you think in terms of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, a lot of people in Eretz Yisrael talk about Mishpat Ivri, and we want to introduce more Torah laws into the laws of the government and so forth and so forth. Okay, well let's make. What do you think about Eretz Yisrael being a totally Torah society? Okay, including punishing someone for Chilul Shabbos. How do you think that will go over? Right? And I'm not just talking, okay, the secularists will not like it, but I'm talking among the frum. How many frum people sit there and would be comfortable with the fact that we're going to punish you for being Chilul Shabbos? Right? Death penalty, maybe we can't do the death penalty anymore because of this, but we're going to take consequences. I don't think it will go over too well. Because the fact is that we don't have that idea. We have an idea that there should be a concept of freedom of religion. And I think that there actually is a concept of freedom of religion within Torah, and I'll get to it. But the point is that how do you get to that acceptance of freedom of religion? Like, what happened? And that yields, especially within our world today, where freedom of religion is now being challenged. If you see this secularist, atheist response to the world, in many ways, it's not just that we have a problem with the religion of ISIS, because their religion we have problems with. The fact is that one of the problems that exists is if you call ISIS a religion, then don't you have to have some kind of tolerance towards it? Well, how?
Expression, your freedom for you to stretch your arm out ends at the tip of my nose.
That's right. Okay, why should that be?
Because my nose is precious.
Because it's a limit on freedom of religion. So what's freedom of religion?
You can practice your religion any way you like, unless it
and how do you justify that?
Unless it impinges on somebody else.
And how do you justify that? In other words, what's the argument for that? See, that's the interesting point. I'm not disagreeing with that. No, in the general world.
It's the sort of agreement that people came to in the Enlightenment.
Right, but what are they really saying about religion?
You can do anything you want as long as it doesn't affect me.
It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
It's a personal thing. It's personal. You want to play golf? Okay, I personally think it's kind of stupid following around a little white ball, but you go right ahead. You're not hurting me about this.
Keep smashing my ball through your window.
Then you can't play golf. But the point is that what does religion become? It becomes a personal behavior, right? In other words, if that behavior is not going to affect me, then it's not a problem. The problem is that what religion really is about? Is religion simply an aspect of personal behavior? See, that's where the question of how you understand religion and the point of religion becomes significant. You had many people who were advocates of freedom of religion who were atheists. In, let's say, Declaration of in let's say the American Founding Fathers, there's always a question of what Thomas Jefferson really believed. Thomas Paine was an atheist. If you get back to the early French forces in the Enlightenment, Rousseau always is presented as he looked like a Catholic, he practiced like a Catholic, but a lot of people sit there and saying, wink, wink, when you think of Rousseau being a Catholic. Voltaire takes more winks, right? In other words, you're not going to, the fact is that if you really don't believe in religion, then you're basically saying it's a personal behavior. Okay? You like playing golf or you like playing tennis, no skin off my teeth. The fact is, what is religion really about? And that's where you get to Torquemada. Why did Torquemada want to wanted to get people to adopt Christianity. What was his thing? They weren't hurting anyone. So why was he so adamant about it?
Because his religion said that that's what he had.
Why?
Accept.
Why?
Why do you believe?
No. What was his religion really saying?
Personal reward for him. If the whole, if everyone in the world was following that religion, it would impact him.
Yeah, is that what he believed? What was the story? What was behind it? See,
Was he a descendant of Jews?
I'm not sure. I've heard something like that, but that's
Pablo
Pablo Christianity was a convert. I mean, but Pablo Christianity, his argument is, I want to save my brothers.
Well, the Jews especially were a contradiction of their prophecy that the Jews will accept the Messiah.
So no, it was more than that. The Jews were inherent contradiction to the validity of the religion. Thomas Paine, when he was confronted with why he doesn't believe in Jesus, I read he said, okay, let's understand this. You're telling me that someone existed and declared himself to be the divine or whatever. Okay. We're not going to get into issues, no, he never really said this, that gets into did Jesus ever really exist, and so forth and so forth. Okay. But according to religion, Jesus said that he was the Son of God. Okay? If you want to accept the historical Jesus and not believe he said that, that's fine. But according to according to fundamentalist religion or traditional religion, Christian Christianity, Jesus said he was the Son of God. Okay. So Thomas Paine said, and you're telling me 2,000 years I should believe that he said he was the Son of God. Why? He says, because people, century later, in Asia Minor, accepted his testimony, i.e. Jesus' testimony that he was the Son of God, and did all these miracles, and walked on water, and fed whatever, I don't know, with one loaf of bread, all these things, right? But the people who lived where this was happening basically don't talk like that. Those people didn't accept it. So let me understand this. You're telling me that these events occurred in this place, and the people who were around at that time, who lived in that city, no, we don't know anything about it. But 100 years later, right, 500 miles away, people bought it. So Thomas Paine, listen, I think I'd rather listen to the people who really were there. Jews inherently challenged the fundamental of the belief. When a Jew walked around and said, "Oh, I don't think it's true," you were challenging the belief. And now you're getting close to what religion really is about. Religion is not a personal practice. It's not your personal way of doing things. Religion is a statement about reality. That's what religion really is about. Okay, if you believe in Christianity, you're saying this is the truth. If you believe in Islam, you're saying this is the truth.
How's it different from Marxism?
Marxism
And Mormonism or whatever.
Marxism is another statement of the truth.
Yeah, so they're all just operating systems.
It's all statements of the truth. And in a certain way, Moshe Bear says he doesn't believe in any atheist because there always has to be some kind of this is behind everything that our belief system. The fact is, anything you state is a statement about the truth. Atheism is a statement about the truth. What is reality? Okay, if you don't believe that there is a force guiding the universe, then you have a certain view of reality. If you believe in Christianity, you have a certain view of reality. And then all the different Christians have different views of reality. Islam, they all have different views of reality. Okay, what a religion really is a statement of a view of reality. It's similar to philosophy. The only difference, religion supposedly relies upon different processes for determining what reality is. Get into concepts of faith and stuff like that, or intuition, whatever it is. But it's a statement about reality. So when a person says, "I'm not a Muslim," what does this mean in terms of looking at this statement of reality? You're basically saying that this guy Muhammad was not a prophet, right? Okay. When you say
you believe that all Muslims are misguided.
that's true, but the fact is that your statement is you're wrong about your statement about reality. Okay, and that was the statement that I sent around when we sent out a thing. I sent a statement from what's his name? Who's it from? Oh God, no. What was the name of that author? Gee whiz. What was his name? Devout Christian. A Catholic, I think. Oh, what was his name? I can't believe it. All of a sudden, it was in the flyer that we sent around with the you're looking it up?
Yeah.
Good.
There's the quote. But I don't know if we put the name.
I put the name.
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis. What C.S. Lewis basically said is a true statement about religion. And he was talking to Christians. He's basically saying, listen, you want to argue that Jesus was a nice teacher, right? From let's say a liberal reading of the text and so forth and so forth. That's fine. But you have to recognize that's not what the text says. Okay? Now, the truth is that liberal Christians would sit there and say, you're right, we don't agree with the text anyways. But the point is if the text is telling you a true story, that this guy walked around saying he was the Son of God, so he's one of two things. He's either the Son of God, or
Crazy
a little bit, and that's nice. Either he's a con man, or he's crazy. So Jews walking around basically are saying, right, the person you believe to be divine is really a crazy man.
Or he never said those things in 100 years.
That's another argument, and that's why some Jews try to get around it by saying, well, we're not going to attack Jesus. Or Paul, we have I mean, the fact is, we'll say no, they never really said it. Never. But the point is you are making a statement about reality. Religions make statements about reality. And they make statements about the most significant reality, God. And if you basically, and by the way, how do we see this? Okay? Right? We're coming up to Pesach and so forth and so forth. When Moshe says, God said, and the Pharaoh says, I never heard of this God guy. Who's God? So Moshe says basically, okay, we're going to show you who God is. That's why I think one of the greatest scenes in film done, because tonight is the Academy Awards, is of course Yul Brynner, in the Ten Commandments, falling onto his throne and saying, "He is God," right? I think I've told you everyone before. If you notice in the Ten Commandments, one of the credits in the Ten Commandments is the Jewish Medrash. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, because the Medrash says that Pharaoh didn't die in Yom Suf. He didn't die at Yom Suf, and basically he fell. He and that's why when then there's Midrashim would say he was the Melech of Nineveh. We got another gig. He became the Melech of Nineveh. And when Jonas comes up and says, "Listen, God's not too happy with you," immediately he sits there and says, "We know what to do. We've already been in this position." But the fact is that's what religion really states. Religion presents a reality. Okay? Orthodox Judaism presents a reality. Now, there are disagreements with the reality within Orthodoxy. There are disagreements. There's different understandings of what oneness might mean, but that seems to be acceptable within Orthodoxy. And then there's understandings that there's things that are false. Okay? So that's basically it. But already you've moved religion out of the category of being a personal activity. Right?
Was it just the Jews that didn't take it personally when other religions said, "No, you're misguided. You're following the wrong religion"? Because the Muslims didn't take it so kindly, the Christians didn't take it so kindly. Did the Jews ever not take it kindly?
Did Jews ever not take it kindly? I don't think Jews were very happy when people didn't follow the truth, right? Because if you read within Torah, truth is extremely important, right? And the fact is,
it was only commanded to the Jews. It wasn't commanded to other nations.
Wait a sec. Is that true?
I don't know. That's what I thought.
What was only commanded to the Jews?
To the observance of.
But the reality. We're not talking observance now. We're talking reality.
Well, it was expected that they followed the 7 laws.
And the 7 laws of Noah are based on an acceptance of
One God.
and a certain reality. It's an interesting disagreement. There's an interesting viewpoint. The Rambam says, in the Rambam, when he talks about the observance of the Noahide code, he says no. There's no obligation to force non-Jews to abide by Torah, by 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. But then the Rambam makes a very, very interesting statement. Okay, and the interesting statement has different parts to it. But, okay, he actually makes 2 statements that are connected. The first statement the Rambam says is Kolfin kol ba'e olam. Okay, you are to force. And kofin means physically force all the people of the world to follow the Noahide code. So basically, the Rambam is basically giving a very powerful statement about freedom of religion, it says, because the Rambam says Jews have a command to force non-Jews to follow the Noahide command. Okay? That's the first statement he says. Then he says that if a person follows the Noahide code from reason, okay, now this is different girsas, different presentations of the Rambam. This is Hilchos Malach, where the one that is usually found is a person who follows it from reason is not even from the wise, but actually I should turn around the way the Rambam really says it. He says that the observance of this Noahide code should be because you believe that this code was commanded by God. Now the Rambam's language is very interesting, and the Or Sameach points this out. The Rambam says that a person must accept that at Sinai, from Sinai, that non-Jews were previously commanded by God in these commands. And when you follow the Noahide code, you have to do it because God said for you to do it. Okay? Then it says that if you only do it from reason, that's philosophers and so forth, then there is a disagreement in the language of the Rambam. One version of the Rambam, which is found in the more general text, is velo michachamecha, and a person who follows it only from reason is not even one of their wise people. There's another reading of the Rambam, which is usually more accepted by scholarly people and so forth, is ela michachamecha, but they're from their wise ones. But in order to be mecheside umas ha'olam, to be of the righteous of the world, you have to accept that the Noahide code comes from God, and you're doing it because God tells you. Now that's a statement of reality. Now the truth is there's an interesting article by Rabbi Michael Broyd, and you can look for it online. It's available online, where he points out that basically that viewpoint of the Rambam, that Jews have an obligation to force Noahides to abide by the Noahide code, most Rishonim, all the other Rishonim basically disagree with it. That the Rambam basically is a singular voice that says that Jews have an obligation to get non-Jews to abide by the Noahide code, or to force non-Jews to abide by the Noahide code. On the other hand, though, there are other opinions. He brings down the Sefer Chassidim and so that says, but Jews get non-Jews to abide by it, in influencing the world to follow the Noahide code, or encouraging or teaching and so forth and so forth, then other people say it's okay. So the Rambam takes the most extreme viewpoint that basically says you got to force the religion. Then there's other people who say basically, yes, we should share this perception with others. So we're talking about reality. Force this concept of this perception of reality upon the whole world, yielding that Noachites will follow the Noachite code. Other people say, no, this is the reality. If you want to follow the reality, it's a good thing. You should encourage people to follow the reality. That was the concept of the Lubavitcher Rebbe recently. Then there is the other viewpoint that says, listen, they do their thing, we do our thing, and as long as they don't bother us, we won't bother them. But not that that's okay. It's sort of like, let them mess themselves up by not doing what's right.
So I'm sure there's a Lubavitcher Rabbi probably would have said at some point, we have enough trouble hurting our own sheep.
That's an argument where Moshe says that our first responsibility is to the Jewish people. But the fact is that there seems to be an idea within Judaism that you want to share the realities with the world.
But even if that was true, I mean, could you not make the argument that for Christians and Muslims, the 7 Noahide laws are almost implicitly accepted, right? So
yes,
it's not,
right, exactly.
It doesn't seem like that high a bar.
No.
What?
It doesn't seem like that high a bar.
No. The fact is, it's just that okay.
It's Hollywood and the atheists.
So the point is what you're getting at is that deviation from the reality. How is that looked upon? See, this is where you get into an interesting issue, and this is why reality becomes significant. If you're looking at religion as a personal behavior, then basically you do your thing, I do my thing, right? And if you go to hell because you're not doing my thing, that's your business, right? So when someone comes knocking on your door to try and spread the word to you, you sit there and say, "No, thank you." What's he going to do, right? So he might sit there and say, "Well, I'm not going to beat you to do it because that's wrong nowadays." But Torquemada says, "No, I should do it. I should, because the fact is that because the reality is this is reality. You aren't abiding by this reality, and that's an affront to God. And the fact that you're not accepting the reality, and your behavior therefore is an affront to God. Therefore, I'm not going to tolerate that behavior." So nowadays, the attitude of freedom of religion is generally, if a person does have a religious feeling or whatever, is like, well, I'm doing my thing, you do your thing, and because you're doing your thing, you're going to go to hell. That's your business, none of mine. But that also people aren't very happy with. Okay, we'll get back to that in a sec. But the point is if you're focusing on behavior, it becomes, this is my thing and that's your thing. The point is, what you're raising now is how do you look at different behaviors, but really what you're getting to is how do you look at different perceptions of reality. So in a certain way, you're saying that the reality that Christianity and Islam accept, which has a repercussion of abiding by the 7 Noachide laws, how do I look at that situation? Because effectively, these people are acting correctly, and they also have some semblance of God, even though it's not correct. But there's some concept of the deity. So if you accept the idea of the Rambam is that you got to believe in Sinai, like the Jewish Sinai, and that's it, then you're stuck. You're basically that. But if you sit there and say, the guy does believe in some God and so forth, and he's basically being ethical, how do you do it? So you find Rishonim that start having that perspective. One of those people is the Meiri. And this gets into a very interesting understanding of freedom of religion. See, what you said beforehand about freedom of religion was really personal. You do your thing, I do my thing, right? I'm not even thinking about reality. As long as you let me do my thing, that's okay. But the fact is these people, and in terms of letting you do your thing, it's if you do something that sometimes contradicts me, I'll let you get away with it because you believe it's your religion. Let me give you an example. This is an example that I saw on an LA law, but it happened to be a real case in California. Okay? What happened was that there were parents who were Christian Scientists, and the kid came down with meningitis. Okay? And the minute the kid came down with meningitis, okay, they took the kid to a faith healer, because Christian Scientists do not believe in going to a doctor. So they took the kid to a faith healer. It didn't work. They tried everything and so forth. It didn't work. The mother started saying, she needs a doctor. This daughter, she needs a doctor. And the husband was saying, no, we got to believe this is a challenge of the faith and so forth and so forth. Finally, the daughter, the wife picks up the daughter and takes her to emergency a few days later. Unfortunately, by the time the wife took this action, it was already too late, and the hospital couldn't do anything. So the daughter dies. So the parents were brought up on charges of reckless abandonment of their child, leading to death, and so forth and so forth. And this was the case, and the defense of the parents was freedom of religion. We were doing what we thought we should do as parents, pursuant to freedom of religion. The court came up with a very interesting decision. Okay, remember, 2 days into this, the mother starts saying, we got to take her to a doctor. Then a couple of days after that, take her to the doctor, but it was too late. But it seems that if they would have went to the doctor, okay, I'm sure doctors will verify this, and in most cases, this meningitis could have been treated with antibiotics, and the kid would have been okay. And even when the mother started saying, we got to take this kid to the doctor, it still would have been okay. So the jury came back with a very interesting decision. The jury basically said that the mother was guilty because once she showed a lack of faith, she was acting irresponsibly and not taking the child to the doctor. But the husband, who never showed any wavering of his faith, he basically was not guilty because he was just abiding by his faith. Because in America, we have this attitude of faith. This attitude of faith has nothing to do with reason. It has nothing to do with, maybe I should think about this. Right? It's basically like, I have faith. And basically that's an extension of the Christian concept of faith. That it's basically, I believe. So therefore, within that perspective, the father was perceived to be a believer, and he was just doing what he thought was right. And freedom of religion, yeah, the court could have taken the kid away from her, but you got to let the guy do freedom of religion, even at the expense of the court. I don't.
What year was that?
I don't know.
Was it the 80s?
Well, LA law was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just like a case like this in Alberta happened just in the
It
last
was a recent
three
case
or
in
four
reality.
months.
Yeah.
3 or 4 months.
And was a similar decision?
Yeah.
A similar decision?
The mother was convicted, but yeah, the mother was convicted.
Because she questioned.
Naturopathy.
Well, she
It was
they,
something after upset they cancer.
No, it was meningitis
Oh, it was
also.
also meningitis. I remember.
yeah, but it was. I don't know if it was religious faith. I mean, they just believed in naturopathy.
Yeah, it's something different. That's not freedom of
It
religion.
seems odd to me
But
to give a different decision between husband and wife when the husband and wife are initially trying to come from the same perspective.
yeah, but what happened was the wife started to waver in faith, and the husband.
Do that, you give up
Right.
your
Right,
secret.
but-
I'm surprised that the
Change
law
your
was
beliefs, right?
allowing
Yeah.
for a religious
That's what you
perspective.
believe.
Like I didn't think the law.
No, in the States, freedom of religion is that strong.
Let's say if you're a Muslim Salafi who believes it's okay to beat your wife when she needs it. So the American law will not let you beat your wife.
No. The fact of the matter is that the law here is for the parent to treat a child with the utmost care and pursuant to your perspectives.
Right.
But then you're right. The question is that's where you get into issues with religion. But the point is, of this case, what I'm just pointing out is this attitude of religion has a lot to do with it doesn't affect your reason. Once that woman was basically saying, "I'm not sure, I don't know. Let's take it to the doctor," and questioning her faith, I would have sat there and said, "Wow, she's the one who used her head." Okay. In other words, faith within the Christian perspective, which reflected in the court, was it's got to be 100%, right? I would say that from a Jewish perspective, Judaism would be much more sensitive to the mother's behavior, to the father's behavior.
Also, if it was in the 1600s, what the parents did was perfectly okay.
Right.
So there was nothing you could do for the kid.
Right. But what I'm saying that what I'm saying is Judaism recognizes that our understanding of the truth, okay, itself is difficult. See, what happens in many aspects of religion is religion wants a religious ideal is almost like it's 100% crystal clear, right? One of the biggest mistakes that happens within Jewish sources is we all know the Ani Mamims, right? The 13 statements of principles of faith of Judaism. Ani Mamim B'Emunah Shalema, right? I believe with a complete 100% faith, B'Emunah Shalema, with a total faith. Everyone says that. Okay? The fact is that's not the language of the Rambam. Some poet wrote this nice thing. But the fact is that that's not a scholarly statement. Okay? In Judaism, I believe to the best of my ability. Okay? And in the same way, within Judaism, the most you can expect of someone is the best of their ability. Okay? So therefore, Judaism understands that the process of truth is a process that involves the mind and challenging and questioning and so forth and so forth. And therefore, if you don't have the answer, or you don't have what I consider to be the right answer, the acceptance of God, but you're struggling with it, Judaism has a very, very different concept than these other attitudes of religion. This is shown in various halachas. Like, for example, the NISHMA, the argument that someone who's not brought up pursuant to Jewish thought and so forth is not held accountable for his violations of the law. The fact is that it's not just the way you're brought up and so forth and so forth. If you live in a world, the Chazon Ish takes it further and says without open miracles, you really don't have a real heretic. What's a real heretic? And this is a mistake people make in terms of understanding bechira, free choice. I hear people start saying free choice. Why can't you prove the existence of God? Because if you were able to prove the existence of God, you wouldn't have free choice. Okay? Very, very nice. It's just not a Jewish concept. Okay? Why? Because if you can't prove the existence of God and you can't prove Torah, then you don't have pure free choice. What's real free choice? Real free choice is I accept the truth. Yeramim ben Nevat, that was free choice. Right? I have no doubt God exists and so forth and so forth. I'm going to do A even though God says to do B. That's free choice. Now the problem is why would anyone basically say I'm going to do A knowing that God said to do B and knowing that God will punish you for doing A? I don't know.
Anybody who's a teenager understands that concept.
Okay. Okay. I mean, who's a Ective? He knew there was a God. He understood there was a God. He had angels walking around, and he says, "Listen, I'm going to do A," knowing full well God said no. That's bechira. Now the question is, why would someone do that? I don't know. That's a real strong question. That's a real issue. What really is bechira? But the point is, point is that if you don't have a clear perception of the truth, then you already have questions, and Judaism respects that. That's a unique thing within Torah. The fact is, the concept of NISHMA. The person sitting there and saying, I don't believe that God said not to eat this ham sandwich. Okay, now we have a question. Okay, now the point is that's because what's religion about? It's about reality. It's about is there a God? And did God make this statement and so forth? And then comes the issue of, did God make this statement and what's the culpability for it? But the truth is, it starts with your acceptance of the truth. If you don't have acceptance of the truth, there's a weakness in your culpability. Because how do you know it's true? Now that idea over here basically leads to the fact that why don't you know the truth? Because there's no open miracles. Why don't you know the truth? Because knowing the truth from a Jewish perspective is part of the challenge of existence.
You mean not knowing the truth? Huh?
No, knowing the truth is part of the. In other words, part of our challenge is to try and gain the truth. Okay, God does not reveal the truth in a clear way. It's also the way He gives halacha. Fact of the matter is that halacha itself. Moshe Feinstein says in his Hakdama to Igros Moshe, says, if God wanted to tell you what to do, black and white, you don't think He could have written a book like that? A, B, C, D, so forth and so forth. Some reason God decided to give you instructions in a way that you have to work on it and figure out what He says and so forth and so forth. And Ramosha says, and the most that can be expected of me is to do my best. So when he writes in his introduction to Igros Moshe, he says, I'm not telling you what the law is, right? Go ask God. To tell you 100% what the law is, go ask God. He doesn't say it this way. But he says, but the thing I am doing is trying to figure out to the best of my ability what God said. And I will be held accountable for the best of my ability. Now the fact is, that means that truth is a challenge. And truth is what we're working on. So for extending that, extend this concept to Christianity and Islam. For whatever reason they're probably, and I'm not trying to sit there and say that there's no negative influences that is leaning towards this feeling than that feeling. It doesn't necessarily mean that every thought that you have is acceptable, but you're supposed to be challenging and so forth and so forth. But the bottom line is we are struggling to understand. This is where you get freedom of religion from a halachic perspective. What freedom of religion from a halachic perspective is, I understand the struggle of an individual to know the truth. Okay? One of the problems that exists, like for example, in terms of freedom of religion in Eretz Yisrael, when I brought up that question about Eretz Yisrael, is wait a second. If you have no way of convincing and explaining to people why this is true, then you have a problem in punishing them. Okay? A person didn't get hasra. If a person wasn't warned beforehand about what the proper, what the law was and so forth, didn't know the law, wasn't warned, he's not held accountable. Because part of it is the struggle to know what's right. Now we're supposed to go through the process of trying to understand it and so forth, but to go up to someone, that's why in a certain way, the Rambam statement enforcing everyone to follow the Noahide law, that leads into a further issue, where the Rambam seems to be arguing there's another argument that says that because the Noahide code is not just a personal commitment to God, it's a societal necessity. So there's another aspect of the Noahide code that may cause for greater imposition in the Noahide code, even if people don't necessarily abide by the truth of it, because it's necessary for the well-working of society, not committing murder and things like that. So these are all aspects to it as well. But the fact is religion is about truth. And the point is as you deviate from truth, the question is how much do you accept the person's struggle with that deviation? Freedom of religion from a Jewish perspective starts with the idea that I understand why a person is struggling. I understand why this truth may not be so obvious, and therefore I will have tolerance towards the individual in the process. Even though they are coming to conclusions which I consider to be problematic, okay, as long as they don't create problems in society.
What you said before about the Jewish perspective on free will that was different? You said that
a lot of people think that free will is because you don't believe in God, you don't believe in God, and so forth. Free will, what I was getting to, is that free will from a Jewish perspective is knowing full well the truth about God. Free will in Judaism is really knowing God said, don't eat the ham sandwich, okay, and you still have a choice to eat the ham sandwich or not. More, God says, don't eat the ham sandwich, and to really understand free will in its actual conceptualization, okay, it's God tells you not to eat the ham sandwich, and that He's going to punish you if you eat the ham sandwich, and His punishment is going to be enough that's going to make you not really wish you would have, not really want to eat the ham sandwich, but the fact is, and then you decide, I'm going to do this even though God said not to do it, and even though God will punish me for doing it.
So it's not free will if you know that this $20 bill was dropped by the person who's 20 feet in front of you, and you know that the right thing to do is to run up and give it back to them, or put it in your own wallet. Like, that's not free will?
Yeah, that's free will, but you know it's the right thing to do. But why do you know it's the right thing to do?
To run up and cash
Yeah,
it.
why?
Well, everybody's going to have their own answer to that question.
So the point is for other people, free wills, and even for the secularists.
Yep.
The factor is that the good thing to do is to give them back the money, but I can pocket and get away with it, and so forth and so forth. The ultimate Jewish understanding of free will is $20 here. Okay, I can go get the $20, or I know God told me to give this money back to the guy, right? And that if I keep the $20, I'll have $20, but God will get it. But it's clear God will make me regret keeping this $20. That God will hold me accountable for keeping this $20, and it's the wrong thing to do, and I will be punished for it, and I have no doubt. And that's the problem. What?
It doesn't seem like that much of a choice.
That's the way I've just described. No. The fact is you're getting to a bigger question. Why would someone do that?
Yeah.
Why would Esav not abide by God, knowing full well that there is a God?
Yeah.
The fact is that leads to a further understanding of free will, which gets into, is that from our perspective, that's not free will, that's just stupid. Right? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so, but the point is to really understand, what I'm really getting at is there's different levels of what we call rishus and evil and stuff like that, The guy who pockets the $20, well, I think is not a nice guy anyways, but the point is to understand the real essence of rishus, the real essence of Jewish evil, is to understand the person who will say, I know that God told me not to do this. I know that there are consequences to doing this and that God will punish me. I'm still not going to listen to God.
So
now,
evil equals stupid.
It seems to be.
But it's self-destructive behavior.
But why would someone do that? In our world today, generally, and this is an argument, the Chazon Ish basically says that someone we consider to be a kofar, an apikairis, or something like that, they're not really what do you call it? They're not really real minim. Okay? Yeah, they don't do it, but they really don't. But they have this argument, well, I really don't believe, and blah, 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 and I don't really think I'm going to be consequences. So all these different things and so forth and so forth. That doesn't make them right. It doesn't make them, it doesn't sit there and say that there's nothing wrong in what they're doing. But the fact is, that's not real evil. Okay? To understand real evil is to basically say, I know full well that God said not to do this. I know full well that God will punish me for doing this. So
there's no evil on the.
I'm not saying no. Excuse me. That's where you're getting a little bit. That's where I'm getting a little bit. Evil is a spectrum. Okay, I'm not trying to say there's no evil except for this. I'm saying that in a certain level, if you looked at punishing someone for, let's say in the courts, to punish someone in the court, right? Okay, he's about to be Machal Shabbos. You have to sit there and warn him and say, God, the pasuk says that this is forbidden, okay, and if you do that, you will be stoned. And the person has to say, I know. And I'm still going to do it. Now, let me take this one step further. If a person just wants to do it because it's a good time or whatever, right? The Rosh says all he has to do is keep quiet. Okay? In other words, if this guy's going to do this thing, he's really going to enjoy it, right? And the guy comes and says, "That's forbidden. You can't do that." The Rosh points out that he can get away with it by just not accepting the testimony. He basically doesn't say anything. Okay? So he says, so the Rosh says the reason someone is killed for Machal Shabbos, it's not because he was Machal Shabbos. Okay? It's not because he's punished for that or he's punished for that. He's punished because he had to say, I don't care. I know God said not to do it. I'm still going to do it. Okay? And knowing full well that I will be punished for doing this. Now, does that mean that the person who did it because he just wanted to have a good time, didn't do something evil? No, but it's not punishable. It's not punishable by stoning. That's because I'm going to the extreme of what real evil is about. Now, what you're looking at is that sounds stupid. It doesn't sound like real evil. So the point is you have to get to the issue of real evil. So what's real evil? The desire to say, I don't want to listen to God, even though God is telling me the right thing to do, and there will be negative consequences, but I'm so against listening to God, right, that I'd rather take those consequences than listen to God. Now
I said that Esau is one such person, but like Hitler wouldn't even qualify for this.
Okay. By the way, that's real Rishas. That's the extreme. Now, Michael was saying that's the well. That doesn't mean no. There is other evil, right? Okay. There's like we talk about averas l'tava and averas l'chachas, sins which are because of desire and sins because of trying to defy God, right? I'm taking it further and I'm saying, so people basically say, I'm going to eat that ham sandwich because I really like ham sandwiches. Okay? Now, why does he do that? Well, there might be an aspect he really doesn't believe it's forbidden, doesn't believe God. In other words, it says, I'm going to eat this ham sandwich because I was brought up Orthodox and I want to show that I don't like it. Even though I can't stand ham, I'm going to eat that ham sandwich. So that's defiant. But still, in his mind, he's not sitting there and saying, I know I'm going to get punished for it. But that's still not a good thing to do. I don't advocate that. Then there's a guy who sits there and says, I'm going to eat the ham sandwich. I know God said not to, okay, and I'm going to eat it. And I know I'm going to get a good licking for this. I know God's going to really take care of me for this. But I don't want to listen to God. That's real lahachas. Now that's a real definition of evil. That's extreme definition of evil. Is that the average evil person? No. those are the people who really are evil? Yes. Were there some individuals like that in history? Yes. Very few. Right? And even there, it's not so simple. I mean, even I mentioned Esav, but Esav's head ended up in the Maras Machpelah. Right? When his head got cut off, I forget by who, by one of the brothers, it rolled into the Maras Machpelah, into where Avram was buried and Yitzchak were buried and so forth. So the fact is,
Esav's head's in there.
Well, yeah,
Wasn't
somewhere.
it one of the brother's sons? Because wasn't he deaf?
Yeah,
Really
right. I knew it was somewhere around there, but thank you.
Which brother?
I don't remember. It was one of the brother's sons because he was deaf or something.
One
and
of
then-
Jacob's sons?
One
Yeah.
of,
One of Jacob's
one of
grandsons?
his
Yeah.
sons' sons. Yeah.
Right. But the fact is that when you get into this kind of issue, you really understand the real depth of the issue. And I'm taking it the other way around. In our world today, there's this idea of faith. I believe, right? And the more stupid the thing, I'm going to believe. And we want to. And the greatest statement of belief is when you basically, I'm not going to hear, I'm going to believe. Okay, and the fact is that that's completely contrary to Jewish thought. Jewish thought basically says, think. And with that regard, we understand movement, as Kathy was saying, we understand that Christianity and Islam, they're struggling with it. Okay? Some of them more honestly than others maybe and so forth, but that kind of response.
But the Western judicial system and the Western ideas about right and wrong are so in flux and so undefined and so arbitrary that you can't even pin them down. This idea that the mother's guilty, the father's guilty, like
that's because in this idea, the reason I brought it up,
just like you get 12 people that 6 of them will say this and 6 of them will say that, and they're applying equally valid and arbitrary Western principles to do
because what they're applying is a Western principle of freedom of religion. Freedom of religion basically is, as was stated, is like as long as you don't hurt me, you can do that. Now with your own family, we understand there's certain limits. You did hurt your daughter, but the fact of the matter is, post facto, we would have intervened if we didn't know you were doing that. But post facto, we're going to let you do your own thing. And we look at religion as basically personal behavior. For some reason, you want to do this. For some reason, you want to dress this way. For some reason, and we're going to let you do it.
But it kind of shows that the court system in the West, it will include the Jewish perspective sometimes and sometimes not.
No. The court,
it's all over the place.
No, the court system is basically saying no, because the court system is looking at behavior. It's basically saying
the Ninth Circuit says the president's not allowed to do this.
Yeah.
And then the Supreme Court overturns it. And
Okay. Wait a second.
The Republican president, and then there's 5-4, and then there's a Democratic president, it's 4-5.
Okay.
It's all over the place.
Okay. I'm not going to deal with the court system in America. You're right. The court system in America has a lot of issues because there's too much personal feeling in the determination of law.
There's no principles anymore.
Right. Okay. That's true. I'm saying there's some truth to that but what I'm trying to say is what I'm trying to get to. I touched upon that point, but I really want to get to the Torah understanding of freedom of religion. But what I'm trying to get at is freedom of religion, and you have the same issues, right? There's a florist who was held, who was sued for not bringing flowers to a same-sex marriage and so forth. So, it's freedom of religion, but you have to respect gays. I mean, that gets into other issues. I'm not going to get into the issue of the American courts and their own issues, and so what I want to get to is that the freedom of religion concept in America, with all its issues and so forth, starts off with a feeling that you should be allowed to do your thing as long as it doesn't hurt me, right? And religion is a practice and it's behavior, okay? It's your way of doing spirituality, and it's your behavior. But what religion really is a statement of reality. Now, when you get into statements of reality, what happens with a lot of these religions is basically they take a very when you get more liberal religions, it's a statement of reality that basically believes in some force in the universe for good and so forth and so forth, and then the people will define their own definition of good and so forth. So God becomes the force for what I think is right. And religion doesn't really need a reality because it really is, so it doesn't matter if Jesus really existed or not, because it's just basically, and this is the way liberal religions talk, it's just basically, this is the way people express their feelings about what religion was about. But in more traditional views of religion, it was a statement of reality. Right? If you were a traditional Christian, you believed Jesus existed. The Jew, therefore, was evil. Why? Because he basically said, this isn't true. He's basically giving the finger to God. Right? When you hear Muslims getting upset when people make caricatures of Muhammad, can you take that seriously? Yeah. I told you before that's but when I heard about Ezra, and that Ezra was called divine, I said it breaks my heart to even say it. The same also Lashon that they believe this about Ezra, because Ezra is a very important figure to me, right? Would I be happy? Someone made a caricature of Moshe Rabbeinu. You think I'd be happy with it, right? No, I don't think I would go and have the same reaction. But the fact of the matter is, it's truth. I'm not happy about that kind of stuff. I would not be happy about that because you're talking about reality. So the point is, in Judaism or Orthodox Judaism is a statement about reality, which has repercussions in terms of behavior. But then, with the difference within Orthodox Judaism is the other people, when they talk about this truth is usually from some simplistic belief. I believe, right? And not even wanting an argument, not really, you can throw little arguments here and there, but not really intellectual challenges, because the truth is that all these issues is like, on balance of probability, this sounds right. Okay? And this makes sense to me. With a recognition that I am the arbiter, and even though I believe this, I don't know if I accept this conclusion. I don't know if I can convince some of the other person about the same conclusion, because I have certain ways of looking at things. But the point is that Judaism does have that sense of recognizing that there's a challenge of knowing truth. Now, that challenge of knowing truth still has to be his challenge. It still demands of you to work hard at it and to think about it. You can't sit there and say, because it's not easy to know the truth, doesn't matter. Oh, I can't know if Sinai really happened, therefore it's okay for me to eat a ham sandwich. No. The fact that Sinai may have really happened, so you better really think about it and figure out what you're going to do and challenge it. But if along this process you were brought up a Christian, and you have certain ideas and so forth, and you basically are getting some moral perspective, and you're against murder, and you're against theft, and so forth, that's why there was a tremendous feeling in the 1700s of a more positive feeling towards Christianity. Because they said, listen, these people are trying to be ethical. They're struggling with the knowledge of God. I'm not going to obviously their conclusion is not correct from a Torah perspective, but they're involved in it. And therefore, from the Jewish perspective, you start seeing much more accepting attitudes towards Christianity. So the argument is that the Christian church may not be a Makam Avodah Zarah. The mosque isn't. Now, that's not so simple, the Christian church. So you have situations where certain rabbis will sit there and say, in certain situations you can go into a church. Right? So everyone made a big deal about Jared Kushner going to church. The truth of the matter is his rabbi is Haskell Lookstein. Haskell Lookstein went into a church in 2008 for one of Obama's ceremonies. And Haskell Lookstein said, in this situation, I felt it was necessary to go in. Now, the truth is, in this whole discussion, there were some very interesting discussions about this from England. Because in England, the rabbis in England do go into churches. Okay? It's very interesting. They say that the chief rabbi of England is supposed to go. It seems that Rabbi Jacobowitz only went into church once, and it was for some major funeral that he felt he had to attend that. But the fact of the matter is,
after coronation
what?
too, right? Wouldn't the chief rabbi?
Yeah, but he wasn't chief rabbi at the time. But the fact is that there was issues like this, and the argument is there was a rabbi. I saw a rabbi said when I accepted a position in England, I was told by the Beis Din that in decisions dealing with my position as a rabbi, I had to follow the decisions of the Beis Din. And I was told by the Beis Din in certain situations I had to go into a church. And what happens is that basically the clergy all walks in together, except for the Jewish clergy. The Jewish clergy then walks in with the royal family. Okay, and they aren't clergy in that regard. But the fact of the matter is that's a decision that says, listen, we don't think it's really a makam avodah zarah, even though they got some things wrong. Okay, what?
Catholic in England.
Yeah, but they're Anglican. It's close. That's also an argument for a difference. Although I've spoken to people about that because what? Sorry.
What's the prohibition about going into a church?
If it's a place of avodah zarah, a place of idolatry.
Some people differentiate between Catholics and Protestants.
Catholics have the Trinity, right? So it's like,
Well, they all have the Trinity. The question is,
they don't all believe it.
well, the more liberal ones don't, but the evangelicals do. The evangelicals do. But the fact is, it's also the Catholic churches have little statues, and then how do you look at the saints and the Mother and the
you say
Virgin?
it's idolatry because of Jesus?
Or it could be even from the Virgin Mary, because you give powers to the, and then you get into, is that idolatry? Then you get into issues that it might be a deviation from the true understanding of oneness, but it might be a form of idolatry that is permitted to Noachites, because what you're recognizing is forces outside of God. And a Jew is supposed to not have any recognition of sub forces. You see, the point is, what it gets into is are there other forces? Did God create other forces to run the world? Okay. Now, if He created other forces to run the world, like an angel and so forth, then it gets into an issue: can a non-Jew pray to his angel? A Jew can't. Well, that's where it started. Idolatry dropped out God. But if you accept that there is a God, but accept the fact that God has forces that He then hands over some governorship to, let's say the Sar of Esav. Okay, we're picking on Esav. The nation of Esav had its governing angel. So could someone in the nation of Esav pray to his governing angel? Right? So the point is their argument is, yeah, a non-Jew can approach that, as long as the non-Jew accepts the fact that the not as an not even an intermediary, as a governor. In other words, when I stand up for the Governor General in Canada, it's not because I believe the Governor General has power. I'm standing up for the Governor General in Canada because of respect for the Queen, who really has power. But we won't get into that. But the point is that gets, so there's issues that Noachites may be allowed to approach sub-forces. A Jew has to relate strictly to God, which leads to an interesting question. Okay, there's an interesting question of that. Because there's a time every week where a Jew seems to be asking something from angels. From what? From what in Shalom Aleichem? Shalom Aleichem? No, where do we start getting into problems in Shalom Aleichem? Barchuni l'shalom. Bless us for good. Right? So some people basically say, wait a second, blessing is not asking, it's not asking him to do it. It's like going up to someone and saying, can you give me a bracha? So some people say it's okay to go up to a human being and ask for a bracha. It's not okay to go up to the angel and ask for a bracha. So there actually are people who basically took out Barchuni l'shalom, who really take that out. not too many people, but there are people who don't like the Baruch Hu Shalom for that reason.
Well, we can get to food 25% faster.
And then there's people who don't like Seitzlim L'Shalom. What, you're getting rid of them already? So get rid of that. Okay? Okay, so there's half. Okay. The fact of the matter is I do say Baruch Hu L'Shalom. Okay? I have one member of the family who's usually quiet during in my years. Okay. Because my kids are no longer home. But the fact is that this shows, these type of conversations shows the depth of understanding God, the difficulty of God, and so forth and so forth. Religion people don't really think about what religion really means, and therefore religion becomes a behavior. I like doing this or whatever.
Well,
and
it's so extreme that people equate all religions as being the same.
Exactly.
They all feed into
exactly, because they all are serving the same
person.
person. Right, because the fact is that it's all the pursuit of spirituality and motherhood and apple pie. The fact of the matter is religion is about reality. And therefore, but more than that, from a Torah perspective, it's furthermore the struggle to understand reality. It's not so simple. It's a challenge. Okay? When Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Avram to go sacrifice Yitzchak, I'm telling you, what do you think Avram's real issue was? What's going on here? Right? Okay? I mean, those 3 days, he must have been in a total quandary. How do I understand God? What do I understand about this? And so forth and so forth. But he got his orders. So he went and he did it. What?
How do Christians view that story?
As him basically accepting the word of God I don't really know. The truth is, I never really read Kierkegaard. So but the fact is, I think that he's a classic Christian perspective on this. But the truth is, it's usually perceived to be that he was so
afraid.
No, it's not that he belittled himself. It's like, this is what God asked me to do. The fact of the matter is, from a Jewish perspective, I think he was basically going through a turmoil. He says, I got to do this because God gave me a commandment. Here's the conclusion, but I don't understand this. And it's difficult. And it's hard to understand. And that's what a Jew is about. But that leads into Jewish aspects of freedom of religion, because if God's truth is not so clear-cut, then I have a struggle. That's where freedom of religion would work in a Jewish state.
So Judaism is about the struggle.
It's about a lot of it is a struggle, and a lot of it is based upon the starting point of truth,
which is kind of juxtaposed. Where Islam means submission, right? It's
okay.
Which is that's a completely opposite concept.
In many ways, but the truth of the matter is, they looked at the Akeda, and that's why the Akeda is significant. There is a submission, but it's a different type of submission from Torah. Of course, you're going to do what God tells you to do, but the point is that if God also wants you to, it's a struggle of the truth, and that's one of the things that always gets me about that story. Someone comes up to you and says, if God told you to sacrifice your son today, what would you do? Right?
That's a which one?
Well, you're right, and your point is because
then the next day says, can we make it a 2-for-1 deal? Yeah? Okay. Okay. And we won't mention your name in the video. Okay. Now the point is, but let me switch.
If God actually spoke to you, you would do whatever he told you.
No, you know what the truth is? Is that if God ever spoke to me, my first thing is to say, who wants to drive me down to Queen Street? Because I'm having visions that God spoke to me. The only reason it worked is because Avram understood that it really was God. And it was the God who basically confronted him with stone. and he already argued with, and he talked to the. And then all of a sudden, God's saying to Avram must have been in this. There's no doubt this is God, and he's telling you something that's totally incomprehensible. And that's why there's Midrashim who basically say that Sarah Imenu was furious at Avram. Because the Midrashim said, that Sarah Imenu, when she heard the story, said, for those blankety blanks in stone, you start arguing a Shreifet Kol Haaretz, a Yasad Nishmas, blah, blah, blah. Your son who's a tzaddik, you don't open your mouth? And that's a big other question. Why didn't Avram open his mouth? He had a bunch of questions. The minute the story was over, the Midrashim say Avram just blurted out questions. Why didn't he ask? And we learned from there that we're supposed to ask. Avram, for some reason, felt that when he was under the edict, he couldn't ask. Well, that was something we learned that you should ask.
Who was somebody brought down that he actually doesn't tell him to sacrifice his son. He actually doesn't use.
That's the answer. That's what he says. The answer is, he says, God said, the Medrash says, God says, I never told you to sacrifice. I just told you to put him on the Mizbeach. Well, what am I supposed to put him on what am I supposed to do when he's on the Mizbeach? I didn't say to do anything. I just said put him on the Mizbeach. I mean, but that's the Medrash. That's the Medrash.
Was it just because somebody brought that down? Right?
No, but that's the Medrash. The Medrash says that Avram basically was.
That's fascinating because that basically says that one should always be looking for ways to make your rational approach fit.
No, one should always be thinking.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that
that's
one.
What I'm saying. I'm not saying
it doesn't.
But one should be
to make sure.
To
make sure
this is wrong.
To make sure you
listen for a way out if you need to.
Or listen to the possibility of maybe you're getting something wrong.
Yeah.
The fact is we do believe in the analysis of people, and that Torah demands analysis. It's exactly part of the issue, because it's not fundamentalist religion, and freedom of religion comes from that concept. There's a difference between the acceptance of variant opinions within halacha, where we'll respect the variant opinion, like there's an article I've written about tolerance. Don't know if it's on our website or not right now, but the fact is, I point out that in halacha there's two forms of tolerance. There is tolerance within the halachic system. Okay, I find this piece of meat to be kosher. Or I say this piece of meat is not kosher. You, through your halachic analysis, says this piece of meat is kosher, right? The piece of meat is behind me. I have the sandwich over here. I hold it's asur to eat the sandwich. You hold it's mutter to eat the sandwich. You ask me to pass you the sandwich, right? Can I pass it to you? Well, I hold that I can't eat the sandwich, but you hold you can. I'm talking halachically. You know what I mean? It's not a problem for me to pass the sandwich to that person.
Oh, really?
Because he's following halacha. His perception is the sandwich is kosher. Therefore, I'm not doing anything wrong. Okay? Okay? So that's one form of tolerance. I accept your halachic behavior is different than mine. Okay. Then comes a different type of tolerance. That's a tolerance of culpability. Okay? A person wants a sandwich. It's halachically not kosher. He doesn't care about kosher. Right? I can't pass him that sandwich. I have to look upon him as incorrect to eat sandwich. But let's say I come up to him and find that he ate the sandwich. Am I necessarily consider him to be evil? No. That's where you get into issues of Tinnik Shenishma, the person who's not held to be culpable. Where you basically say, listen, it's wrong, but I'm not going to have that attitude. I don't have to have the negative attitude towards someone who is a violator of the law. Okay? And then there are people who really are people you're supposed to have negative feelings for. That's where you get into different attitudes of tolerance, but it comes about from an understanding of the depth of the issue. Religion is a statement about reality. It's a statement about reality that demands thought. It's hard to get it right. And it's then hard to figure out the right behavior that comes from getting the concepts right. But fact is that out of that, it makes us struggle and trying to get it right and so forth, and has to listen to our own voices and think and go back and forth and so forth and so forth. And all the great minds in Judaism are noted for changing their opinions because, let's say most great, because they're constantly rethinking things. Okay, so this person said yes and this. On the other hand, it also allows us to develop a certain type of tolerance. Not a tolerance that says, listen, because you believe in this, as long as you don't hurt me, you can do whatever you want. It's a tolerance that says, listen, you're struggling with trying to get the truth. I understand the struggle. So that's why I gave that case with the Christian scientists. In our world, the man who basically said, I believe, okay, in that case, post facto, right, they would have taken the kid out of his hands if they would have known about it. Post facto, he was just following his religion. But from a Jewish perspective, what do you mean? You weren't struggling with it? You weren't struggling with the issues involved? Okay? That's what we expect from people. And we expect that, and that's what we expect from that's why we have a tolerance. That what we expect from freedom of religion in our world. In our freedom of religion in our day today, it only emerges from the fact that we really don't think religion states reality.